What is up, my dashing dudes and darling dames? I am the Hans TV, and welcome back to the only subreddit that asks the right questions. It's r/am I the a-hole? Our first post for today comes from AITA Father. AITA for telling my wife to step up as a mother? So, I'm a 33-year-old male, and I have been married to my wife who's 31 for 6 years. 2 years ago, we adopted our kids, a 7-year-old female and a 5-year-old male from Haiti. They were toddlers when we brought them home, so we had never really been through the newborn stage. Well, my wife and I decided to have a biological baby. She is currently 5 months old. Well, when she was born, my wife decided she needed to make up for all the lost time she was pregnant, and in doing so, kinda left all the childcare on me. My wife loves the baby and cuddles with her, but the second she starts crying, my wife hands her over to me. She knows how to change a diaper, but she believes that it isn't her job. It was never something we agreed upon, like some weird deal, where we agreed she would carry the baby for 9 months and I would raise it. We formula feed, which I prefer, but I can't leave her home alone with the baby. Basically, yesterday I had to take my 7-year-old to a soccer game. I left my wife with the baby as she was just sleeping in her crib. My wife called me mid-game and screamed at me about leaving the baby with her. She said that she had pooped and I had to come back and clean it up. I asked if she knew how to change a diaper. She used to be a full-time nanny, and she said yes, but that is not her job. I drove back home, changed the baby, and took her back to the soccer game. By the time I came back, there were only about 10 minutes left. One of the other moms told me that my daughter had been switched to center midfield and scored 3 times in a row and basically won for her team. I was so proud. When she was done, she asked why the baby was here, and I said I had to go pick her up. Then she asked if I had seen her while she was center mid, and I told her the truth. She was so upset and wouldn't talk to me. I, of course, didn't badmouth my wife to her. I offered to go get her ice cream, but she wasn't in the mood. When we got back home, I heard her crying to my wife. I obviously don't mind her venting to my wife, but my wife is saying things like, "Yeah, he shouldn't have done that," and "I'm so sorry he treated you like that," even though I told her on the phone that I was going to miss part of the game if I came and picked the baby up. My wife and I got into an argument later. I told her that she actually has to care for the baby, and she basically called me selfish and lazy. We go to a marriage counselor. We don't have many problems in our marriage, but we had to do it for the adoption and we ended up sticking with it, as well as our own therapists. The marriage counselor has rolled out postpartum, and she has suggested for my wife to do more with the baby, but she doesn't want to. Here's where I'm definitely the butthole. She said, "Stop acting like you're my slave or something." I'm Haitian, black, and she is white. I then snapped back. "Well, you need to step up as a parent." I know I'm the a-hole for saying that to her, but AITA for genuinely thinking of it? OP, no. Whenever she got pregnant, it really is her duty and yours together to take care of that baby. It's not just one of you. And her just saying, I don't want to do it. That's not how it works. She's a mother too. And she made you miss part of your daughter's ball game because she wanted you to come home and change the baby because she was too lazy to? That's not okay. You are not the butthole. Our next post for today comes from ZYOZ. AITA for telling my husband to lose the entitled attitude and do things for himself. Just recently, my husband, who's 31, was promoted to assistant manager of the warehouse. We both work on the ups of 50 hours a week. I am shift manager at a behavioral disorders facility. Both jobs are very hand-on and strenuous. Since his promotion, he has developed an entirely different attitude. Extremely entitled and, dare I say, rude as all heck. He is always boasting and bragging. This has been going on for 3 weeks. So, some examples are as followed. On his days off, he wants the house to be radio silent. If our 4-year-old wants to play, he tells her to stick to her bedroom because he needs peace and quiet after working so hard. If I make our daughter lunch, he will immediately say, "Where's mine?" He asks me to grab him things damn near constant all hours of the night. He expects nightly back rubs, and if I ask, he will scoff at me and say, "I worked all day," even if I had as well. He expects meals that he likes made every night, regardless if me or our daughter like the meal or not. He also now acts like he has full say over the money because he makes more. Last night was the tip of the iceberg for me. Before this, I let a lot of things slide because it was a recent promotion and hell, he's excited. So I get it. But last night around like 11 p.m., I was in bed scrolling through my phone. He comes into the bedroom, lays down and says, "Babe, you should go make me some ice cream. I want the chocolate drizzle on it. And oh, don't forget the cashews." Then he starts scrolling through his phone. I ignore it because I feel at this point I was going to snap. He then shook my leg and said, "Did you hear me?" So I responded with, "Yeah, I did hear you, and no, go make it yourself. You were literally just out there. Your sense of entitlement is way out of line. Do some things for yourself." He became offended and instantly, like freaking clockwork, said, "But I worked all freaking day." So I snapped back with, "Yeah, I did too. In fact, I worked 12 hours to your 8. Like I said, do things for yourself." He is now saying that he is not acting entitled and that I was just making my bad day out on him and that everything I said makes him feel unappreciated. AITA, did I push it too far? OP, again, you're not the a-hole because you worked a 12-hour day to his 8, number one. And I get that doing warehouse stuff is very strenuous and very like tiring on your body, but so is your job. Like, and him just saying, "Oh, I get to make all the bills because I make more money now." That's not how that works. Y'all are equals in this relationship and should be treated as such. It's not one over the other. It's both together. Our next post comes from Ultimatum A-hole. AITA for giving my wife an ultimatum. My wife and I have been married for 15 years. We are child-free and in our early 40s. A major reason why we are child-free is that my wife grew up in an abusive home, and a huge fear of hers is that she would perpetuate that cycle of abuse. She's been in therapy for as long as I've known her, and she's been pretty open with me about her childhood, but not completely. She says she isn't keeping much from me, but I have a feeling that she's leaving out the worst stuff. She has 3 younger siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. My wife pretty much raised them on her own growing up, and she has a very strong mama bear instinct when it comes to her siblings. About 2 years ago, one of her brothers OD'd, and my wife asked if he could live with us. I agreed on the expectation that he would go to rehab, and that one relapse, he's gone. To his credit, he worked hard at rehab, got himself clean, and he's been living with us ever since. He works full-time doing construction and has saved a decent amount of money. He wants to buy a house but has no credit history, so I've been helping him build his credit score, and have told him that I would consider co-signing a loan if he needed it. I've been really impressed by how well he has done for himself. About 6 months ago, though, my sister-in-law was on our front steps in tears with her 3 kids. I have not gotten the full story from sister-in-law, but from what my wife told me, sister-in-law had an affair, her husband found out, they were both drunk and got into a fight, and sister-in-law told her husband that her affair partner was better in bed and her husband kicked her out. As far as I know, no divorce process has started yet. Sister-in-law and the kids have been staying with us since then. We don't have a big house, so it's way too crowded and, in my opinion, not sustainable. I don't like sister-in-law. She doesn't discipline her kids, they don't clean up after themselves. Sister-in-law has made no effort to find a job, she gets drunk in our home. I hate it. There was no one single moment where I realized that sister-in-law needed to leave. But I had a conversation with my wife and told her that I can't stand sister-in-law and her kids living here any longer. I told her that sister-in-law needs to start looking into other options and that they have overstayed their welcome. My wife accused me of playing favorites with her siblings, that we've allowed her brother to stay for years. We can't just kick sister-in-law and her kids out. I said we aren't kicking them out. We are going to tell them that they have X amount of time to figure out other options. My wife said that I have no idea what sister-in-law is going through and what it's like to live with an abuser. I agreed with her, but I felt that the situation sister-in-law was in with her husband wasn't the same as their childhood. Sister-in-law got herself into this situation. It is not our responsibility to get her out of it. I told my wife that if sister-in-law and her kids were not out of the house by the end of the year, that I would move out myself. She looked shocked when I said that and called me an a-hole as she walked away. So we're gonna go down to the comments for Little Win, who has a similar story. NTA, I was your wife, oldest child of an abuser who cared for my siblings. It took me destroying several relationships to realize I had to stop letting myself on fire to care for them. Your wife genuinely believes her siblings need her, and to a certain extent they do. However, what she is doing is enabling your sister-in-law, not supporting her. Support looks like what you're doing for your brother-in-law, which is conditions that help support him being healthy, developing a stable life, and creating a plan for his future. saving for a home of his own. This is a great example of helping. What she is doing for sister-in-law is enabling because it in no way supports her changing her own life and thus becoming more independent. By not working, effectively parenting, and being drunk, she is continuing that same cycle with her own children, in your home and on your dime. I don't blame you for being upset one bit. I will say, before you give up, invite your wife to therapy so she can examine this dynamic with a therapist and really unpack why she thinks she is helping. Why her bond with him is more important than the one in your marriage. And finally, how to stop. And I completely agree with this. It's his wife. The brother-in-law is doing so well. He got off the drugs. He didn't relapse. He went to therapy. He went to rehab. He did all of that. And he's trying to buy a house. He's working. The sister-in-law, she had an affair with her husband and isn't doing anything to actively make herself a better person. So no, OP, you're not the a-hole. Our front post for today comes from Philium96. AITA/Karen for reporting a cashier and possibly losing her job. Hey, so I'm a 24-year-old female and my partner, who's a 26-year-old male, were doing our food shopping a few weeks ago. We tend to buy enough for 2 to 3 weeks worth of meals, then cook and freeze them on that night. We're also vegetarian and like our meat substitutes. We also sometimes use milk substitutes because it has a longer shelf life than regular milk, and we're trying to cut back on dairy. We started being vegetarian because meat prices are quite high in our area. We started on the basis of, okay, meat industry has a big impact on the environment. We'll just not cook meat, reduce our carbon footprint, and save ourselves money. And have meat if we ever go out for a meal. We quite quickly went off meat altogether. That being said, we don't judge people for eating meat. We even cook meat dishes for our friends. We also have our cat, who is our little old lady princess. Poor thing had a pretty rubbish life, so we're determined to let her live out her golden years being spoiled rotten. We start unloading onto the checkout line. We have something ridiculous like 20 bags of corn, 3 blocks of tofu, a carton of almond milk, and a carton of soy. Amongst our veg and other things, this looks like a pretty vegan shop. I realized we've forgotten to get our cat some chicken and asked my partner to get some. So the young cashier who's busy scanning our groceries kind of looks at me in disgust and says, I thought you guys were vegan with how much vegan things you're buying. Why are you buying chicken? So I replied quite jokingly, oh, we're veggie, but our little cat is a proper carnivore, so we like to treat her to some fresh chicken from time to time. This set the cashier off. I can't really get down all of what he says, but it was something along the lines of, we're just fake posers. If we really cared about animals, we wouldn't have a pet. And we'd certainly not feed our pets meat. And how we shouldn't be taking all these vegan products away from actual vegans if we don't respect the lifestyle enough to follow it properly. Honestly, it just pissed me off. I'm here to buy my products, not get judged for what I do with my life. So I quite curtly told them that it was none of their business, and that I'd like their name so I can speak to a manager. They got very quiet. My partner came back, we paid for our shopping, and I did get another employee to grab the manager, and I complained about the attitude of the cashier. The manager said they'd sort it. My partner, who hadn't heard the interaction, said I was acting like a Karen, and I should have just ignored the cashier. We haven't actually seen this cashier since. We pop in between shops for whatever things we've forgotten, and just did our massive shop again, and no sign of them. I didn't actually want to get them fired, just get a chat about appropriate workplace conversations with customers. AITA? Was I acting like a Karen? In this context, OP? No. Like, they kind of started it, so it's not really Karen-like behavior if they're the ones who started it and did it in the first place. Also, why would they say not to feed your animals meat? Animals like cats, dogs, most animals in fact, need meat to survive. They can't process the veggies and vegan stuff like that. So for them to say that, they're severely uneducated. And you are not an a-hole. You're just a good person who doesn't force their beliefs on others. And I respect that from you. Well, alright my dashing dudes and darling dames, that is going to do it for today's episode of r/Am I the Butthole? I hope you liked the stories, and if you did, I'll link them in the description as always. And if you liked the video, subscribe, share, drop a like, and a comment down below with what you'd like to see me read next. A humongous thank you to everyone who has interacted with my videos so well. I cannot thank you for what y'all do for the channel and what y'all do for me personally, because it makes me feel so good about what I'm doing here to see people actually liking and interacting with my videos. But with that being said, I will see you in the next video.